Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today at the MetWorks newsroom. Someone once asked a friend whether it was better to get a divorce or a separation. The friend answered, well, it depends if you're the one being stuck with the bill. Figures from the Office of National Statistics indicate that there are just under 120,000 cases of divorce in 2010 in the UK alone. With the opening of the Divorce Hotel in the Netherlands, it's now become as cheap and easy as a weekend break. It might just spare you that splitting headache. Later in the show, we will be hearing from Shabana Waliat, a family solicitor from Shortland's law firm, and Pip Dunnington, a music student from Royal Holloway University and child of divorced parents. They will be talking about divorce and the effects it has on couples and the children and how best to handle these issues. But first, let's hear from our field reporter, George Fox, and then let's go to the streets of London to see what the public have to say on the matter.
In 2010, divorce was at its lowest rate in 29 years. But that's still a high average compared to, say, 100 years ago. So today we'll be asking, are people too quick to get divorced? Or maybe they're too hasty to get married in the first place? For many years, divorce has been almost constantly rising. That is until 2004 when it began to drop again, hitting a 30-year low in 2009 at only 113,949 divorces in this country that year, compared with the highest on record, an unmatched 165,018 divorces made in 1993. But unfortunately it appears to be on the increase again. In 2010 it rose by 4.9% in that 1 year and is expected to rise again. Experts believe that the spikes on the graph indicate rising divorce to coincide with recession, as they appear to rise in the early 80s, early 90s and early 2000s. But with websites such as fasttrackdivorce.co.uk and quickiedivorce.com offering services such as instant download divorce for £37, it is not just a sign of our times, or do we live in a culture that will throw away something rather than fix it?
I don't think I have any particular thoughts on divorce. Yes, I recognise divorce is appropriate in certain circumstances.
It was expected of one to get married. In my case, it wasn't a good thing. But again, in my day, we're talking a different generation. I was the first person in my family to get divorced, but now, of course, divorce is very common.
Well, yes, because I think they were too quick to get... It's a disposable society we live in, isn't it? We don't fix anything, we just throw it away and get a new one. I think that probably holds true for too many things.
I went over to Christ the Saviour's Church in Ealing Broadway and met with Father Andrew Davis to see what he thought on the subject.
I try to encourage them to make them and their friends and families at the wedding realise that this is a serious, lasting commitment and that it will, it survives according to what you put into it. Well, I accept that divorce happens. Nobody wants divorce when they get married, but things do go wrong, and sometimes it's a necessity to sort a situation out. We don't want it to happen, and it should only happen for for real solid reasons. I've had people look unhappy, maybe a parent, but that's not a grounds for objection actually. But no, it's never actually happened. I'd be quite put out if it did.
In affairs such as these, are people too fickle, or is there too much pressure on couples nowadays? Whilst there is evident industry in marriages, there's also a growing business in divorce. Is this a cynical view, or is it just hard-nosed business? All I can say is, it's no walk in the park. My name's George Fox, and back to you in the studio.
Well, some interesting opinions on a very serious matter. I'd like to say hello to my guests. Thank you very much for joining us. Pip, a music student from London, and Shabana, a lawyer. The first question actually I'd like to ask Shabana, what are the most common practical things that you think contribute to divorce?
Every case is individual, so it's hard to say that there are a number of things that would contribute to a divorce. But I mean, as times are changing, different things contribute. I've seen a pattern where now we have lots of where people are working overseas, and the separation within the marriage, although it's not an informed separation, that causes a distance within the relationship. You're meeting new partners abroad, and that then leads to divorce.
Yeah, tricky. Well, before 2010, national statistics showed us that divorces have been in a steady decline for 30 years. Why do you think that happened?
I think there's two things. I think there are less marriages now, so obviously the statistics for divorce will be less. More and more people are living together. And secondly, with the recession, there's been a less of an inclination to divorce because of the cost involved. And negative equities within properties have meant that, whereas before, if you were going to divorce, both parties would probably be rehoused, but now there's no equity within the property, and one party is inevitably going to have to rent and rather than buy a property, and that's put people off.
Okay. Pip, a question, if you don't mind answering, in what kind of ways do you think divorce affects children involved?
That's fairly difficult to say. It depends on whether divorce is amicable or not. I think it also depends upon the age of the child. It can be okay if it's an amicable split. They can get over it in a shorter space of time. The long-term effects don't tend to be there, I don't think. I think it's short-term effects of the upset and the difficulty of the change. But for younger children, I think it's much harder. And if it's not an amicable split, it's long-term effects. It's soul-destroying, really, for the child.
Of course.
Very, very difficult to get over.
Would you like to tell us a bit about your experience?
It was a very, very long process. The divorce went through when I was 8 years old, but it was started when I was around 4, so it took a very long time to go through. I don't know whether that was because there were sort of objections from my dad as to whether it was going to happen or not, so it sort of took longer, the process dragged out a little bit, but it was quite distressing, and you don't really know what's going on, you feel very lost, and as if the whole world has sort of been snatched from under your feet. You're very much, everything is up in the air. It's very difficult.
And that process must have been even harder than the actual impending divorce, the 4 years.
Yeah, it is, because the divorce is sort of, when it goes through, that's it. It's final, but it's the run-up to the divorce, and I think people forget that it's not the actual act of having the divorce go through, it's what goes on beforehand that leads up to the reason why they're getting divorced that needs to be remembered.
Right. You were saying that it is possible to have a divorce in which the children are not affected negatively. Would you agree with this, Siobhan?
Absolutely. I think with us as family lawyers, we all now, most family lawyers are accredited to a proper organisation, and we're all experts in only this field rather than being lawyers in every field or knowing all areas. And we're now taught, or we have to adhere to a code of practice where you try and keep things as amicable as possible. And I've written articles where how to make the process easier for children.
Okay.
So that they're the focal point. Where there's children involved, the divorce becomes very, very complex and emotional. So there are certain things that divorcing parents can do to make the process easier for children. And we try and tell the parents, well, we only see the one party, but we try and tell that one party what to do with the children and how to make it easier for them.
And what would you say the sort of main points of that would be?
Well, the first thing is that the point at when you tell the children what's happening, don't have arguments going on in the house and the children don't exactly know what's going on. I think the parents have to think, right, if we've decided that we're going to separate, how are we going to tell the children? The best thing to do is to work out that you both tell the children exactly the same thing.